For a more complete story of the beaver, why not contact the Canadian Wildlife Service in Ottawa?
So, if you've been following my channel for some time, you'll know I mostly discuss and analyze what other people think, pointing out where I think they've gone wrong. Well, to equal the playing field, I'm going to be discussing my thoughts here and opening up myself to the same scrutiny. Now, I don't think it'll be a surprise to anyone that I don't support the Black Lives Matter movement. I also don't support current third-wave feminism, religious apologetics, or any of the other myriad of social organizations that advocate for systemic change in our society only. And you know, it sort of makes sense in a way, because let's say we take a look at Star Trek: The Next Generation. Best show ever, by the way. There's no real racism, and people choose their path based on their interests and their desires. And obviously we don't live in a world that resembles this, so it has to be the system, right? But it's also true that we do not live in a world like equilibrium, where the system dictates your activities, your job, or what you can and cannot feel, where you have no choice in your life. So if our society is neither of these, where does it sit? So let's draw a line here. On the left, we'll have systemic influence, which is simply the concept of the system determining where a person will end up in their life. And on the right, we'll place personal responsibility, where a person's choices determine where they end up in their life. And why don't we put a midpoint in here as well, which will represent the concept of personal responsibility and systemic influence being about equal forces in an individual's life. As you move to the left, you think the system plays a larger role, and as you move to the right, obviously you think personal responsibility plays a bigger role. So how about we see where some people or some organizations sit on this scale? So let's talk about Black Lives Matter, also known as everyone's favorite group. They seem to be only able to frame the plight of black people in terms of systemic influence, not personal responsibility, as you'll see here.
The education system, the prison system, and the justice system were not formed protecting those with melanin in mind. To be quite blunt, they were founded to maintain a hierarchy of power.
How about we look at another group, like third-wave feminism? Well, they'll tell you that women do have many choices in today's society. They'll also hold the position that things like objectification, microaggressions, and gender stereotypes hold women back.
What is a thigh gap?
When you're standing straight up, there's like a gap in between your thighs. Girls just don't want their thighs to touch.
Nearly 250,000 teens had cosmetic surgery last year.
No. The Kylie Jenner challenge has gone viral. Doctors warn it can cause a number of issues.
Oh my God.
Oh God.
We raise our little girls to view their bodies as projects to constantly be improved.
So why don't we move over to the other side? Conservative talk show host Ben Shapiro proposes that personal responsibility is the primary cause, but systemic influence, by way of things like culture, help direct those individual choices. Let's see what he has to say.
All right. Let me do a follow-up question. This one is directed at Ben and Monique, and we're going to move into income, and I'm sure we're going to revisit Baltimore and Ferguson here in a couple of minutes. But I wanted to start with this. I got an email from Pastor Wayne Perryman. How can you argue that racism is not a driving factor in income inequality?
Because it has nothing to do with race and everything to do with culture. And when you have a culture that doesn't, and when, you know what? Explain to me. You explain to me why black kids aren't graduating high school. Explain that one to me. Explain to me why black kids are shooting each other in rates significantly higher than whites are shooting each other. Explain to me why 13% of the population is responsible for 50% of the murder. Explain to me why the number of black kids in prison, not for innocent reasons, not for walking down the street and getting pulled into a prison, is so high. Explain, if it has nothing to do with culture, explain to me why the single motherhood rate in the black community jumped from 20% to 70% in the same course of time that the civil rights movement has made such tremendous strides. Is America more racist now than it was in 1960? And if it is, please explain to me how that happened.
Now, why don't we take a look at someone who is all the way on the other side, someone who believes personal responsibility is the penultimate reason why someone ends up where they end up. And this person actually might surprise you. Morgan Motherfudgin Freeman.
So can I go back to, because I thought what you said was fascinating, because you called it bull when you said people can't,
pull themselves up. Do you think that race plays a part in wealth distribution, or either a mindset that you can't or
Today?
cannot? Yeah.
No.
You don't?
No, I don't. Hey, you and I, we're proof. Why would race have anything to do with it? Put your mind to what you want to do and go for that. It's kind of like religion to me. It's a good excuse for not getting there.
Yeah.
So what do we end up having? We have people like Black Lives Matter claiming that systems like racism are the driving force where people end up, while others like Morgan Freeman, a black man who has seen the racism of the 1960s and before, thinks it's personal choice. And it seems to make sense when you think about it. For the majority of people, the biggest ways you can screw up in your life are choices that you make, not situations you're forced into. Dropping out of high school, for example, breaking the law to do drugs, getting pregnant without a stable family structure. And these bad choices affect whites just as it affects blacks and just as it affects Asians. So why do the people on the left hold the positions that they do? Well, I think Morgan Freeman was really onto something when he said this.
It's kind of like religion to me. It's a good excuse for not getting there.
Yeah.
So what if it was the case that the people on the left were only holding these sorts of positions because of an already predetermined conclusion? Say that all groups were in fact equal. You see, this is what I think is going on with the regressive left today. They've been so inundated with concepts of racism and sexism that they will not and cannot see reality. Differences between men and women, Asians and whites, blacks and Indians, young and old, gay and straight, cannot exist to them.
I think you just don't know prone. Point I'd like to make. First of all, I'm not going to say it's prone to blacks, prone to crime, because I don't believe it, and it's not true. That's the first. It's not true. It's racist. The second thing I have is.
It's not true because it's racist. Come on. This is what's going on with these sorts of people. Things aren't wrong because they're able to be proven wrong, but because they paint a particular group in an unfavorable light. Now, I said I'd put some of my thoughts out there for criticism and comment, and I'd like to hear what you have to say. So, what do you think about this? I believe this viewpoint is correct. The question is, do you? I look forward to the comments below, and if you know anyone who might be holding a differing viewpoint, please forward this video to them and encourage them to leave their thoughts as well. Once again, thank you for watching. If you enjoy my content, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and have a good day.